Good evening, good afternoon, and welcome. Let's take a look at the big story that we are tracking for you. As the scare over the new COVID variant spreads across the globe, Israel has now said that it will ban the entry of all foreigners into the country, making it the first nation to shut its borders completely in response to the mutant variant. The Ministry of Transportation has also announced that Israelis arriving from abroad will not be allowed to use public transportation serving the airport. This comes as the country detected a second case of the Omicron variant. Under the new guidelines, all those arriving from overseas will be quarantined for at least 3 days. WION spoke to the spokesperson of Israel Sheba Medical Center, Steve Waltz, which is one of the top 10 hospitals in the world. Listen in.
At this moment, Israeli investigators are checking to see exactly how bad the situation is with Omicron, whether or not it is more infectious, whether or not it punches through the existing vaccines that we're using here in Israel, which are Pfizer and Moderna. It'll take another week or two before we really know. What we're really concerned about is a new spike in the existing corona numbers here in Israel and the flu season. We don't want a situation where there is a perfect storm, where people are not vaccinating for the flu. We may have to vaccinate for the fourth vaccine. If this all comes together on top of Omicron, Israel will be one of the countries that will suffer greatly, but the government is taking measures to try and prevent a real outbreak here. So we're still in an unknown phase.
For more on this story, our correspondent Jody Cohen is joining us from Ra'anana in Israel, which is the home of Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Good afternoon to you, Jody. Now, my first question to you is, Prime Minister Bennett was one of the first world leaders to restrict flights following the discovery of the new Omicron variant from South Africa. What more can you tell us about the latest restrictions?
Yes, of course, you're absolutely right. The government held a drill a couple of weeks ago to test its response to any new variant of concern, and so now has been able to implement lessons learned and take action fast to do things like restrict flights, even going so far as to stop all tourists from visiting Israel from any country for the next 2 weeks, as more is learned about the new variant. Corona hotels are back in use for citizens returning from red countries, and quarantine has been extended for all people returning from abroad until they have 2 clear PCR tests.
Jody, there is a lot that's obviously unknown about this new variant. What do you expect to happen next?
Well, the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah, has just started here in Israel, and with it usually comes big celebrations. So people are being asked to be responsible and to use the green pass for any indoor gatherings of over 50 people. 2 people so far have been discovered to have Omicron, and there are several other suspected cases. The key message is really for people to go and get vaccinated if they haven't done so already, and to take children over 5 to be vaccinated in order to defend the country from another wave.
What is the reaction to the restrictions that are being imposed or mulled?
So the reaction to the travel restrictions has been mixed. On the one hand, we're seeing Ben Gurion Airport very busy and lots of people still going abroad. They've obviously already booked and made their travel arrangements. On the other hand, we're hearing from the travel industry that there has been a wave of cancellations, similar to back in March 2020 when the coronavirus first appeared in Israel. We're also seeing protests from rights groups who are opposed to the Shin Bet tracking. The government says that Shin Bet is only tracking known coronavirus Omicron cases and it's not a general tracking of all COVID cases. And it remains to be seen if more parents will take their children to be vaccinated against COVID with this new variant of concern.
Jody, thank you very much for bringing us all those latest details there.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.